One less testing facility opened this morning after California regulators announced the revocation of San Diego-based Verity Analytics license to operate. The news comes as part of an ongoing statewide crackdown on testing facilities engaging in unethical practices, including inflating THC potency. According to MJ Biz Daily's Chris Roberts, Verity's closure marks the fourth lab to lose its permit since December 2023, following similar actions against THC analytical Proforma Labs and California Cannabis Testing Labs. The revocations are primarily due to issues deemed to be undermining consumer safety, such as inaccurate THC reporting and the presence of banned pesticides. The Department of Cannabis Control highlighted in the article that an unexpectedly high number of labs have failed to comply with new testing standards, resulting in a significant drop in the number actively operating from 37 in January to just 27 today. Verity Analytics faced multiple violations, including a 32% inflation in THC potency and employing unqualified staff. Roberts said that the DCC also found that Parinaz Rostamzadeh, Verity's lab director, would clear samples for pesticide contamination based on her visual inspection of the chromatogram and not based on any scientific criteria. Pass the eye tests. According to DCC notices obtained by MJ Biz Daily via public records request, each of the four labs that lost their permits over the past year inflated THC potency, with one allegedly inflating the THC potency of flower samples by nearly 50%. Notices revealed that Proforma Labs reported cannabis flower containing 24% THC, while DCC test results produced of products from the same batch showed 16% THC. Proforma was also found to have tested cannabis containing chlorphenapir, a prohibited pesticide, despite not reporting its presence. And while some industry operators welcome the DCC's enforcement actions, they stress that more robust measures are needed to ensure testing reliability and protect consumer health. This comes in addition to lingering concerns over the extent of contaminated products that may have already reached the market. Overall, DCC lab crackdown reflects a broader push for integrity in California's legal cannabis industry. Whether the initiative's actually working or not, or it will actually deliver a lasting effect remains to be seen. Personally, I believe too much is at stake here in our entire industry to have headlines like this becoming the new norm. Currently, testing labs are for-profit entities with a disproportionate amount of power over what actually hits the market. And unfortunately, many of the good actors who refused to inflate THC numbers and or ignored the presence of heavy metals and pesticides have gone out of business by now. And though it's more visible in California due to size and influence, recent headlines from a multitude of other states show that poor lab ethics is a nationwide problem. With public safety at risk and rescheduling right around the corner, I would not be surprised if this is one of those situations where the federal government is going to end up stepping in to take over. But that's just my take. It's Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News. I'd love to hear the rest of y'all's thoughts on this. Are we heading into government-run testing and the implementation of nationwide standards, or is unchecked capitalism just going to keep doing its thing? Because this is America.
Oh, boy.
Well, I've got some opinions.
Go ahead.
So in the past, lab testing has not had a standardized single way of doing things. And the argument for not doing that was we didn't need regulators acting as scientists and coming up with an SOP one size fits all. And now the argument to do that is going to be that the industry couldn't get its shit together, self-regulate, and come up with something that everybody agreed was going to be like the ANSTI standard or whatever for how these processes and machines are used to come up with the empirical data, right? So I think as you see these lab closures and we see headlines around are the labs participating in ways to not have certain things detected or overinflating results, there's going to be this pendulum swing back towards this feeling, especially outside of the lab testing C-suite community, that the government needs to tell labs how to do it so that it's an even playing field. Will that happen? I'm not so sure. But when you see the number of labs that have been shut down, knowing that this is the hardest license type to stand up, and that once you get that ISO 17 whatever thousand accreditation, that's a big deal, and it's probably equally as big deal to get your lab shut down, right? It's not like you violated one small thing in how you handled the compost from your grow room. I think we probably will start to see some sort of government standard foisted upon that subsection of the industry.
We blew our chance.
Well, yes, and right. So they've been trying to, in the lab space, come up with a standardization for at least California, right? To say that these are the metrics that we use. This is how we validate these processes. But it's taken them so fucking long to come up with the process, to validate the process, that here we are in this kerfuffle and people are smoking God knows what out of God knows who. So I think, I brought this up last time we were talking about lab standards, and it does look like we're pushing it more and more towards, like, if this is a huge public safety issue. This is not just, oh shit, somebody lied about whether they were ins or dems. This is a public safety issue. We don't know what could be passing through and onto the shelves of consumers. And some things that are safe, perfectly safe for regular adult use consumers who are fully healthy, are not safe for somebody who is a child, who's a medical patient. So we do have to take this very seriously. And I think the more that we screw the pooch here, the more realistic it looks for the government coming in and saying, you know what, fuck it, we have our own lab. We're just going to take over a couple of years, and this is what we're doing.
I don't think the government's going to take over lab testing at all, because I don't think they want the liability.
No, they're not going to take over lab testing, in my opinion, but they could foist upon labs a singular standard or way of testing so that there's parity amongst all labs, and that labs don't use the argument that because their equipment isn't standardized, therefore their process shouldn't be standardized.
Well, that's kind of what they're working on in the validation processes. So I guess we'll see where they get with that and how much more bullshit we have to smoke before they figure it out.
I smoke weed my friends grow that I know has no toxins on it.
Right.
I don't care about THC numbers.
Yeah, anyone that buys weed based off THC numbers is an uneducated consumer. That's the nice.
I'm just over here winning.
Though, we do have a lot of uneducated consumers, and we have to remember, I don't think it's fair to ever mention this without mentioning what I'm about to say, which is we have to remember that not only are those uneducated consumers buying based on the numbers, but they're buying based on the numbers because the taxes are so high that they feel that they need to achieve a value in their purchase. And myoptically, they're looking at the THC levels and trying to figure out what's the best bang for the buck. And so I think part of that consumer behavior is definitely driven by a tax structure that's not good for the consumer.
Well, and I
back
think
against that and say
need...
that's I don't agree at all, Yarrow. The THC numbers were pushed through by the stores before Proposition 64 ever started. It's because, again, the majority of the people who started the stores have no clue about weed, didn't make money, not for the love of the plant at all.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with Matthew. I agree with Matthew 100%, and we need to be a little bit more cautious when we say we have uneducated consumers, because we have uneducated consumers because we've used it, and I don't mean me and us specifically. We as an industry have used it as a marketing tool to miseducate our consumers so that we can get them to buy whatever the fuck we're selling them.